and welcome to Recovery Point's Disaster Recovery Tech Talk. Recovery Point is a pure play provider of end-to-end cyber resiliency and disaster recovery solutions. Disaster recovery is our main mission in life, and we wanted to share our knowledge with the IT community at large because whether you're just starting your disaster recovery research or looking to level up your existing DR program, we can help you. These videos are designed to review software and hardware tools and technologies as it relates to building a successful disaster recovery solution. So today we're giving you an introduction to the Resiliency Console. And whether you're managing routine testing, responding to a cyber event, or you've got a full-scale disaster on your hands, the Resiliency Console offers the single intuitive platform to track and manage every aspect of your recovery environment. I'm Jeff Judy. I'm the Disaster Recovery Chief Cloud Architect for Recovery Point.
I'm Aaron Brandt, Senior Software Development Engineer at Recovery Point. Hey, Jeff, let's talk about New Year's resolutions. I know you have some good ones.
Right. Take more hikes, read more books, exercise, always good, and
good
test
stuff.
my disaster recovery.
Yeah, I know I've got a long list on my side of positive changes that I want to make this year, but I think one thing that's on probably the minds of a lot of people at a lot of different places is making sure that their disaster recovery plan is effective this year. People let these things fall by the wayside, but this is the year to get it done and make sure your plan is effective. So I think that's a good one to add to your list if you don't already have it on there.
Should be number one on my list. So I got a question for you, Aaron. So, when you're building your disaster recovery plans, you're working with the clients, what step do you wait until the middle of a, say, ransomware attack before you start to restore a backup for the first time ever?
Yeah, never a good idea to do that.
Never.
I mean, having an effective plan, is that's something that you have to do in advance. It's not something that you come up with on the fly when you're in the middle of a situation where you need to exercise it. So, it's going to be a lot more effective. You're going to be able to recover more effectively, and you're going to know what your recovery looks like if you plan ahead of time and you develop your plan in advance and you test your plan in advance. And we're going to talk a lot today about how you test your plan, how you build it, kind of how all the different moving pieces that you need to come up with. And this is all stuff that you really want to put a lot of thought into before you become the victim of an attack, not after.
Absolutely right. So, the most important preparation is the assurance that you can recover your data, right? And, we're talking about, in today's world, the number one disaster recovery event is really a cyber event anyway. So being prepared is key. It's critical to being able to recover. But we're just going to take a quick little dive here to take a look at, our company is really prepared. So this was a Veeam Data Protection Report, Trends Report from 2024, queried over 1,200 IT leaders. And I would focus on those companies out there that are sitting in the 7 to 28 day range. They should probably reevaluate the business risk acceptance levels, and then work to align your DR strategy to match what the risk level is that you're willing to accept. But a lot of our clients that we work with, we have a number of clients that are in that 1 day to even less than 1 day recovery range. They're really well organized. They've got a great plan. IT teams communicate very well. But I would say most of our clients fall into the 5 day range. Still very well organized, have a good plan, just maybe lots of data sets, so that they've tiered out things so that the first tier of systems they're able to recover in the accepted level, and then the rest of the tiers you have a few days to bring back to life. But if you're not prepared, this is what we want to talk about today, is where the Resiliency Console can really tie it all in together for you. And we're gonna go into a deep dive here on all of the console settings and everything that you can do. Aaron's going to take us through that. But the high level here is that it's got a nice dashboard feature, so you can real-time event to see where you are with a true disaster recovery event. It shows you the dependency mapping among systems and applications. It's got great reporting, so you can go historical reporting or even in the middle of an event to see where you are. And then a configuration database, so you can just do bulk changes to it throughout the course of the year. There's always changes that are happening, and you got to make sure that you're DR plan stays in sync with what you have in production. Of course, there's testing, so you can cycle through DR testing. We have automation built into that. And then one of the key factors here is ticketing. So a lot of things that happen that you weren't thinking about during a DR test, you want to capture those things. You want to make sure that you track so you're able to close the gaps that you find during a DR testing event. And then some of the use cases wrapped around the Resiliency Console, it gives you the ability to manage those multiple systems and all of the technologies. It's not just a server. There might be a switch or a firewall or a load balancer that needs to be plugged in. You might have to unplug from a production switch and go plug into a DR switch. There's manual tasks involved. And then also there's linking to applications. That a system might facilitate multiple applications. So that might be a very critical system that you need to bring up first. And then one of the main things here that the company really needs to know about is, what is your actual recovery time objective? How fast can you recover? This console is going to give you that. It's going to show you, track every step, every granular detail, timing that it takes to do that, and then report back on, what the actual RTO is. And then one of the things that happens throughout the course of a year as a company is going to decommission systems, put new ones in, add networks, remove networks, new applications. All of those changes have to make it into the DR plan. Otherwise, the DR plans, it won't work and you'll fail. So it's got what we call drift management built into it as well. Aaron, I'm going to hand off to you. You take us through the Resiliency Console.
Sure thing. Give me 1 second here. Okay, yeah. So as Jeff stated, we have a tool here at RPS that we've kind of built from the ground up around disaster recovery and cyber resilience scenarios. So this is our Resiliency Console. It is a tool for kind of constructing and tracking your disaster recovery plan, making sure that all your bases are covered, making sure that you have all of the details that you need to perform a recovery in the event that you need to, tracking your progress during tests, tracking all of your configurations across multiple platforms. That was one of the things that Jeff touched on there on that last slide. I think was that a lot of the clients that we work with have really just kind of elaborate platforms that span elaborate environments that span multiple different platforms. So, there's applications that require, components from the mainframe world and x86 distributed stuff, and then public cloud services, piece environment, and anyone in IT can tell you that your environment is a moving target. So being aware of not only what you have today, but being able to track changes for what you're going to need tomorrow as it relates to business critical functions and applications. That's really what this tool is designed around, is kind of keeping tabs on that stuff, as well as giving you a window into what's going on during a DR declaration or during a test event where you're actually trying out your plan, and you want to make sure that things are working effectively. You've got your application testers in there doing testing on the application level and making sure that all the business functions are there and working properly. And then you've got your technical staff that's working on server recoveries and things like that. It's a lot to orchestrate, especially when there are multiple teams involved due to the difference in platforms and things like that. So really, that's the other kind of focus of this tool, aside from building the plan and making sure it's kind of effective, is the testing and the window into that, and coordinating across multiple teams and kind of giving some visibility into the status of things, so that you have like a picture, a snapshot of how you're doing overall as part of your test. And then also, as Jeff had mentioned as well, the O in RTO stands for objective. So you're going to have some goals around how quickly you want to be able to recover if something ever happens. And the only way to know if you can meet those goals or not is by testing. So, this platform is really optimized for running, multiple tests over time and evaluating your plan on kind of a continuous basis, so that am I able to meet those objectives that I've established for myself, or do we need to make adjustments to our plan? Do we need to, adjust our expectations to make sure that we are meeting the goals that we say that we want to meet. That's really all kind of critical functions that this tool helps to deal with. So just kind of starting from the top here, we're looking at a dashboard view right now of an account that we have set up as an example. And you can kind of see here a breakdown of devices and applications by recovery method. We can see some current and upcoming events. And we do have a runbook test pending, and then an in-progress event right now. We've got some recent events. We can look back at historical tests from here, and we can kind of click on any of these to dive down into them and see how these tests went and kind of compare and contrast with our current setup. Then, of course, as Jeff had mentioned, the ticketing. One of the critical aspects of this system is, and one of the benefits that it provides is visibility into issues that come up during tests and events, because there's always going to be something that has changed since your last test, and sometimes things get caught and sometimes they get missed. And being able to capture specifically, what happens during a test and things that go wrong, and making sure that those are being tracked and adjusted and accounted for. That's all part of this as well. So that's what the this tickets section is here. And we do have some kind of like global overall. If you wanted to see your entire list of tickets or all the reports from all your historical events, we have kind of top level navigation here to get into all of that. But I'm really going to focus on my account. So this is where, if you were a client of Recovery Points and you were using this tool, this is really where you'd set up your plan and your all the details around your declaration. You can attach here things like your network infrastructure diagrams, your kind of anything that pertains to your plan as a whole. Really, the documentation at a high level around what your recovery plan is going to look like. We have tools here to kind of track that with attachments of documents. We have a high level notes capability, that sort of thing. But really, the meat and potatoes of the disaster recovery plan is your inventory. So if you use a CMDB system or something like that, think of this as sort of an augmentation on top of something like that. If not, then just consider this to be your inventory of all of your devices and applications. Really, you should have your entire inventory defined in a system like this, where what you have and where it lives. And you can see in here, we do have a variety of architectures. In this example, we've got some devices that are being restored from Commvault backups. We have some devices that are being restored from Global Mirror. Those are probably AIX or mainframe devices, where there's just a kind of a different platform and architecture involved. So knowing what's coming from where, you can use this tool to kind of track that and keep tabs on where everything is. This is also where you set your tiering, so you can kind of establish high level objectives for different groupings of systems, where how quickly does something need to be recovered. If you've got a device that runs an application that's critical to your business, that you need that up and running within like the first hour of an incident, you probably want to put something like that into tier 1. Whereas if you've got something that's slightly less critical, you do need it for your business, but if it's down for some extended period of time that you define, you can put that into a different tier, a tier 3 or a tier 4 or what have you, to kind of denote the priority, the general priority of recovery of that device based on its impacts on the business. So same thing comes back to applications, and we can look at those in a moment here. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up a device just as an example here of kind of the granularity that we offer inside of this tool for tracking. You can actually set up your network configuration around your devices in here, so you can keep track of a lot of our clients will do kind of an IP translation thing, where a device might have one IP address in production and maybe a completely different one when you bring it up in a DR environment, and you need to keep track of what those translations are, what its address is at home versus what it is when you bring it up in your DR bubble. So this gives you that kind of the capability to track the network configuration for your device at a really granular level, both for your production network back home, as well as on the disaster recovery side. And we also have options in here for scoping. So An example of where this is useful is you may have certain devices that you do not want to bring them up in a test scenario. They're things that you really only want to bring online if you have a true disaster, because maybe it's some device that can reach back home and interfere with a production process, or it sends out emails that you don't want going out unless it's actually running in production, or that sort of thing. You can use these scoping flags to kind of control, okay, I really only want to bring this up during a disaster declaration. I don't want to bring it up during test scenarios. Or maybe you have different types of tests that you perform. That's something that we commonly see with our customers, where maybe in the springtime they do like a full test of their entire environment, and then in the fall they do like a reconciliatory test where they only test a subset of their systems. So if you've got a situation like that where you have different types of tests that you want to perform, and you want to be able to control the scope of what's included in those tests, you can use this part of the tool to do that. There's a lot of other capabilities in here. We do have location tracking. So if you if you have multiple different data center sites, for example, and you want to track what data is coming in from where, you can use that to track your source location for these sorts of things. But really kind of the other major feature that we have here in this section is the dependency management. And this is something that we really put a lot of stress on, a lot of emphasis on this being a major part of your recovery plan. Recovering things in the correct order and figuring out the dependencies inside of your environment is critical to being able to recover quickly and recover effectively. Just a real simple example of this is a lot of times you don't even want to power on, let's say you have a server, it's a VM. You don't even necessarily want to power on that VM until Active Directory is up and running, because if you start things up in the wrong order, that device is going to come up. You're not going to be able to log into it. It's not going to be operational. Your applications are probably going to be crashed or have issues. And so if you boot things up in the wrong order, you're going to have to go through and do a bunch of kind of fix up and patchwork during your event. And that's just going to slow you down. Whereas if we dictate, okay, well, this device actually has a dependency on Active Directory, that's going to tell you, at time of test in your test tracking that, okay, you have to bring up Active Directory first and make sure that application is validated, and you've tested to make sure that Active Directory is doing what it's supposed to. Let's say maybe you can execute LDAP queries or something like that to make sure that it's actually working the way that you expect it to, and then and only then can we power on this device. Those dependencies, you could have multiple dependencies. So you may have one server that depends on another server. You might have devices that depend on applications, or applications that depend on devices, or even systems that depend on entire banks or groupings of servers. So with this dependency management tool, you can get real granular with it, and really we encourage people to do so, because the more detail you have around the capture around your dependencies, it tells you a lot. First off, that's just really great documentation to have about your environment, but also, yes, like I was saying, it does help with the ordering at time of test to make sure that things are coming up in the right order, so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot and have to go back and do a lot of fix-up work during your tests. Kind of an example of that, I'm going to just pull up an application here. We have, this ERP databases application that, this basically constitutes the databases for our ERP servers and things like that. We can see in here that this does have a dependency on Active Directory, but also there's a couple of different servers that are part of this, affiliated with this application, and it's also it is a dependency of some other servers. So we don't want to bring up our ERP application server until the databases are up and tested and available, because that might lead to, again, problems during your test. It might slow you down, or during a declaration, it's just going to slow down your recovery. So being aware of this whole chain of this depends on this, depends on this, and we can see in here we also have like an AWS public cloud service that depends on this as well. So we want to make sure that before we validate our AWS services and recover those, that we have this on-prem database setup recovered first, just so that things are in the right order. And we do offer, a dependency graph view that gives you kind of a nice visual overview of what this looks like. So like you can see here, the kind of the chain of dependencies. For example, this ERP databases application, like I said, depends on Active Directory, which then itself depends on some network equipment. So bringing all this up in the right order is going to give you the most efficient execution for your recovery scenario, and it's going to make sure that you can actually meet those objectives that you set, especially the aggressive ones where every second counts when you're trying to bring this stuff online.
It's cool. The simpler view here, like you can see Nexus, that's the switch, that's the network, and then ASA, that's the security device, the firewall. So I bring up the network, the security, the firewall, the routing, and then AD, and then your databases. Cool.
Yep. Yep. So that's, bringing those things up in the right order makes all the difference in the world when it comes to meeting your objectives and having a smooth recovery. So let's take a look at what a recovery event looks like. I'm going to just pull up an example here. We've got an in progress event here. So this is something that you would be looking at if you were using this tool. You would look at this during your test event or during your declaration to kind of get a feel for where things are at and how the event is progressing. And we've got a number of tools here. There's like a high level dashboard available that can show you kind of how you're performing versus your objectives currently. You can see kind of a visual breakdown, a timeline view, and that gives you kind of an overall when were things recovered, when did they start, when did they complete, and you can kind of use this to identify, okay, we've got some long running recoveries here. We've got some things that haven't finished yet, but it looks like this server 5, for example, is a device that has an extended period of recovery. So we can dig into that a little bit and see what is it that makes that take a long time. And then we can evaluate our dependencies accordingly too, because it looks like we didn't bring up our network equipment until this server 5 was online. So we probably have a dependency there. We should evaluate, is that actually a real dependency, or is there anything that we can do to, alleviate this longer timeline? We want to be bringing up our network stuff early on in the event. So really, this visual view is very helpful in kind of helping you to evaluate how everything's going and when things are started and stopped in their current status. We also have some other tooling on this dashboard too, just kind of a metrics level breakdown of how you're doing for each tier. We've got by recovery method, some visualizations around graphical visualizations around recovery and kind of where things are at compared to what's included in the event. Like we can see overall, we had like 13 devices to restore for this event, and we can kind of see how many we have, 2 in process currently, 11 completed. So it looks like we're doing pretty good on this one. There's also a breakdown here of your application level recovery. So if you are doing, it's pretty common for applications, you have one team that goes in there, a technical team, part of your IT staff that goes in and does some recovery, starts up services, make sure things are running, make sure that connectivity is good and all that sort of thing. And then you probably have another step where you've got an actual business user who goes in and tests and validates these things and makes sure they're working the way that they're supposed to. So, you really want to be able to track those processes discreetly. That's one thing I didn't cover inside the plan, is you can break down like a step-by-step plan for every application, every device. So anything that you want tracked as a discrete process from start to finish, you can have that all kind of available and present here. I also have a detailed view here on this tracker that's going to break down, really all the fine details, individual recovery times for devices, starts and completions and statuses and things like this. And that this all gets updated in real time during a test event, so you can kind of track along with the progress and see where things are at. And like for example, it looks like we've got this server 9 device that we've started the restore the Veeam backup that's currently in progress as of 12:15. So, as soon as that's completed, then we know we're good to continue with this recovery and validation. But this tracker also tells you, based on the dependencies that you have defined, when something is ready to start. So these are all good to go because we've already met all the dependencies. We're kind of nearing the completion of this event. But if something wasn't ready to begin yet, this would bring that to your attention. And once the dependencies are met, it'll give you that thumbs up that, hey, this is ready to start recovery now. So this is really your detailed view into the individual recoveries and how everything is going during your test or declaration event.
Okay, so right here we're looking at, you've got the name of the system, the tier, what's the status, what's the recovery method, start end time, any dependencies are listed here, and then the assignments, action, and then the assigned person. So you can actually like assign people or business units to take action, right? It's a good layout. Yeah.
And also that ticketing that we were talking about earlier, this is a great place. We can just initiate tickets right in line. So let's say that something happened with this server 7 recovery, that it didn't go quite as we expected, and there was some issue that we caught, and we needed to have a dialogue back and forth to remediate that. We could go into add ticket, and that will actually just inline here give us a place to document all the details around what went wrong. We can add notes to these to and kind of track along with the progress as things change with this issue. We can kind of keep track of where things are at with this specific issue, and it'll bring that to our attention right on the tracker and in the reports that we generate from these events. That here's a list of the issues that came up and what was done to remediate them. And a lot of times you'll end up with issues that are kind of ongoing things where it's like it's not necessarily a problem just in this one test, but maybe it indicates something ongoing that you're going to have to be aware of in your next test. So we keep those tickets can stay open here on an ongoing basis and let you track all that and tag that back into your device level documentation and that sort of thing. So it really gives you a lot of visibility over multiple tests to be able to track that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to this. I mean, it's inline capturing an issue during the test versus going back to my notes and trying to figure out what that problem was, and maybe I didn't capture it the right way. So you can just do it inline, right in the middle of the test, and then, like you said, the follow-up postmortems after a test, issues that you need to review, close the gaps in your DR test processes, things like that. It's really good.
Yeah, so I think that kind of covers everything at a high level. Jeff, was there anything that you wanted to add about the Resiliency Console as a tool for test tracking or anything like that?
No, this was excellent. It's a good intro. We plan to follow up with some more deep dives on the Resiliency Console in the future. So thank you, Aaron, for doing this, and thanks everyone.